Welcome to the Empowered Catholic Podcast with Karen and Curtis Herbert, where we combine the best of theology, science, and coaching to inspire your empowerment. It's our mission to help you release the inner obstacles that are holding you back from embracing true Christian freedom so the power of the Holy Spirit can manifest in you. So if you believe that God has more for you, if you want to believe that God has more for you, listen on, my friend.
Hello and welcome to the Empowered Catholic Podcast. It's Curtis and Karen here with you.
Hi, everybody.
And we love getting comments from our listeners. So what do we have this week, Karen?
Sure, we had a listener reach out and say how much I have appreciated your latest episode on encouragement and validation. It's such an important skill and a reminder for me to keep working on this.
Wow, that is a great comment. And our episodes on listening are actually some of the ones that we get the most feedback on.
This is true.
Because
yes.
people come up to us and say, wow, I took that piece of advice and it really helped my relationship with my wife, my husband, my adult kids, my friends, whatever it is. And empowered listening really is a huge life skill. It can be a game changer. And so often we're not doing a great job. And Karen, we've been trained on this, yet we find ourselves sometimes jumping in to give advice when we can tell really it's not the right time for that person.
We do have to keep coming around to this skill and reprocessing it and remind ourselves to keep practicing this until it really becomes unconscious.
So what is it we're really trying to do here, Karen? I feel like it's your turn to make a big summary statement.
Okay. I'll agree. I'll take that on. So we're listening to another person. What exactly are we trying to do? Well, and we've talked about this many times on the podcast before, we all experience the world through our senses, and we all experience them through our own filters. Our values, our beliefs, our judgments, our assessments, our memories, all of our experiences create these filters, and we create meaning from the world around us. We send the information through our filters. We have a view of the world. We have a model of the world. And nobody has the same model of the world. Everyone's model is different. When we're listening, when we're truly listening to someone, we aren't just trying to project our model of the world onto them. We're not trying to create our meaning, our judgments, our assessments. We're listening so that we can understand the other person's model of the world. That's what we're trying to do.
And I think one of the filters I have is usually when I'm talking to somebody, I have sort of a model of them. I have some idea of what makes them tick, or I have an impression or something like that. And that can get in the way of me actually listening to what they're really saying.
Yes. And part of the skill here is learning how to set aside our own model, our own meaning, our own judgments, so that we really can hear what it is the other person means and what it is they're speaking out of.
Yeah, and when we talk about setting aside judgment, that means really all judgments, all your assumptions about what it is they mean, the kind of judgments where you assume you know what's going on. And we're not asking anybody to set aside their moral filters.
Right, yeah.
And never judge anybody and never correct somebody whose behavior is needing some correction. We are saying, look, set aside your judgment and don't worry, no matter how hard you try, you'll still have plenty left to lean on.
You can't really get rid of all of it.
Exactly. That's right.
Exactly. And this is tricky, I think, because sometimes our own response is so deep in us, we just think, well, this is the way it is. This is the reality. Everybody would respond this way. Everybody should respond this way. And that's simply not true.
Now, once you've set aside these filters and you're actually listening, what do you do? What else? What else is going to be helpful?
Well, obviously, you want to use your body language and your facial expression and your eyes to show the other person, right, that you are engaged, that you're listening, that you're hearing them.
Oh, right. Tone, body posture. These
Yes.
things are important.
Yes. And I know when I get tired, I stop doing this. I was looking at whatever, and I want to be listening to you while I'm doing my other thing and not, paying attention. I'm multitasking.
Multitasking.
So obviously, we do some multitasking listening during our day. And when it's important, we want to stop that and engage with the person.
Yeah, that's okay. I know how to get your attention, honey.
You've learned.
I'm talking to you and you're on your phone or something, and I just say, "Oh, I can wait a minute."
That's like
Then you
your
put down
hint.
your phone and you look at me.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, are you actually saying something at this point?
I could take a hint.
Because I know, sometimes we just natter on, and that's how that works.
Right.
So it's fine if I have to ask for attention, and that's really one of your skills as a mom. You got really good at knowing when somebody wasn't listening to you,
I did.
and you would politely ask for their attention.
Yeah. Make sure that I was heard.
Yeah,
What
and
I was saying.
it was for everybody in the family. You would do that, and it served us well. So what else?
What else? Well, I think that when you get rid of the judgment, you want to replace that with a sense of curiosity. So instead of creating the judgments around the person's model of the world, if you could just have a little bit of curiosity about how it is that they're seeing things. And it's not curiosity like, ooh, I want to know the gossip or that kind of curiosity. It's a really pure kind of curiosity. Well, what is that like for you? Or why are those things connected for you? And obviously, why is not the best way to ask that. Maybe how are those things connected for you?
Curiosity, it's such a superpower.
It really is.
It comes up in so many ways because so often it points us in a positive direction. We can kind of be down in our own stuff. Yet with curiosity, often that's what starts to lead us out. And here again, in conversation, here comes curiosity. Well, how about some good, pleasant curiosity?
Yeah. Yeah. Asking some questions about getting a little bit deeper into what the person is saying. And it doesn't have to be, every time you're having this major depth conversation, but even a superficial conversation can be meaningful when we're asking the right questions and having the right kind of curiosity.
What tips do you have for questions?
For
kinds
questions?
of questions to ask? Yeah.
Well, as coaches, we like to ask open-ended questions. And that just means not the yes or no kind of a question, because that kind of elicits a yes or no response versus a continuation of the conversation. So getting curious and asking questions that leave room for the other person to do a little more processing, a little more sharing, a little more connection making on their own.
And often they haven't had the opportunity to really have conversations like that.
Right.
And all of a sudden you can see, well, I'm having some new thoughts here. And what a pleasant and rewarding way to have a conversation as you start to get a little deeper. So the open-ended questions. Okay, Karen, so say there's a couple friends getting together for lunch.
Yeah.
And one of the friends says something like, boy, I want to go on a fun vacation, not these boring family trips all the time.
Right. Sure. So there's a number of different directions you could go with that. There's a million things you could say. It could be like, yeah, me too, man. I'm really tired of all the family trips sucking my vacation time from work. Or, no, those are the memories, man. It's so important. Those family times, that's what really is meaningful. That's a perfect investment of your time. Or I could say, gee, I don't have much family. I wish I had. a family trip. I really would love that. Or I could start talking about vacations I've taken. Or I could ask a number of open-ended questions like, well, what would a fun vacation look like to you?
Now, that's a different kind of question than those first set that you gave me. So it's an open-ended question.
Yeah.
You're keeping the focus on me.
Yes.
On I started sharing about this thing. And so now you're just opening it up a little bit. It's very easy, kind of simple question. Well, what kind of trips?
Yeah. Or what's boring to you about that? Or what is it about family that is somewhat of a challenge for you? So there's a lot of different ways to go, any of which is going to open up the question, open up the conversation a little bit more and show that you're really listening to hear what the other person is experiencing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have heard that when you're in a conversation, when somebody shares something, then you share a similar experience. That's more of a technique when you're just meeting somebody and you're looking for common ground.
Right.
So two people, they start to search for something they have in common, and then they can start talking along those lines. In this situation, though, if you just jump in and start to share your thing, then the conversation is kind of going sideways.
Right.
It's not going deeper. It's not getting any forward momentum. And again, what's different about these questions, the what about the trip, what's the boring part, those are open-ended and they're going deeper into the conversation. They're keeping the focus on the speaker. So, great questions. And mirroring is another technique, if you will, to use in a conversation. Mirroring will let you clarify what somebody means, and it will let them know that you're listening because you're repeating back what they're telling you.
Sure. And by mirroring, you're not really repeating word for word, but you're appreciating what they're saying, you're processing it, and just reflecting it back to them in your own words. Well, it sounds like a lot of your vacations have been really family oriented. And what else is it that you'd like to do? What would be fun for you? So then you're reflecting back and then you're asking an open-ended question. So it sounds like XYZ. I'm hearing you say blah, blah, blah. Wow, it sounds like you're experiencing this or that. And it gives them a chance either to agree or to clarify what it is they're actually experiencing.
And people don't mind clarifying when you reflect something back to them and it's not quite what they meant. They're happy to jump in and say, no, actually, it's more like this. And they like it because they know you're listening.
Sure. And it actually leads them to maybe a little bit more clarification and understanding themselves. Because what comes out sometimes in our language is the end result of something or the surface level meaning. And then as you're clarifying, you're actually getting to a little bit more perspective and understanding yourself.
Okay, here's an example. So let's do something easy. I feel like having an easy conversation today.
That sounds perfect.
I'm not up for the big drama. So how about this? Hey, Karen, I spent a lot of last summer working on this deck. Boy, it took way longer than I expected. It was crazy.
Wow, that sounds like a really big project. And I'm just kind of curious, what was your original expectation?
Oh, well, you were gone for 5 weeks, so I expected to get the whole thing done in 5 weeks.
That is such a common experience, right? It sounds like you had this plan and this vision of what it would be like, and it didn't exactly turn out like you thought.
Yeah, it was really a classic case of it took twice as long as I expected. So you guys, you heard Karen, she's simply reflecting back what I'm saying. She's reflecting it back to me. That's mirroring.
Yeah. And then I could ask some curious open-ended questions like, wow, what was that experience like for you in the middle of all of that, realizing how much longer it was going to take? Or I could ask, well, how did you get through that middle part that's so frustrating when you realize it's a really big project and you start to get a little discouraged? Or I could ask, well, how did it all end up for you? Were you really happy with the end result? So there's lots of different ways you can go and mix up the reflecting, the mirroring with the open-ended questions.
And several of those questions you state a question.
I guess. Ask.
Ask, that's the word. So several of those questions were about, well, how did you feel about it?
Right.
How did you experience it? And this is generally a good direction to go if you want to keep the conversation moving forward and getting a little deeper, is ask somebody how they felt about whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or perhaps what they think about it, but working on the emotion is often, very powerful.
Yeah. And, something I was thinking about what you mentioned earlier, Curtis, like when you're just meeting somebody initially, and I've actually had a lot of good luck meeting someone initially, both reflecting and asking open-ended questions. I would say even especially when they're sharing an experience that I'm not familiar with. I like to hear, what they're saying. They might mention a hobby they have or something they did last weekend that I know nothing about. And I find that if I say something like, well, I don't know much about that. I've never done that, but I've always wondered, blah, 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 blah. And people just jump on that. And you ask them, is it like this or is it like that? Or what's it really like? And they're happy to share. And then you get a little just taste of what their life is like and the things that they enjoy. And I always find that to be very positive.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Those beginning conversations can be a little intimidating sometimes for some of us. Now, here's one tip.
All right, bring it on.
Often when somebody is sharing some good experience they had, if you help them savor the experience, they get to kind of re-experience it and re-enjoy it. And it's a great way to share the moment with them. And when somebody comes in to the house and they're telling you something good that happened to them, you can ask them, oh, what was that like? Or, well, tell me from the beginning what happened, and have them walk you through the experience so they can savor it and internalize it and share it together. And it could be really, really nice.
That is a really great point, Curtis. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And savoring is something we don't do as often as we could. And it has a very powerful, positive effect in our hearts. And this topic of listening is really something that I think we need to practice. It's a skill. The power is in the practice. If you come to one of our trainings, we do a lot of advanced teaching around some questioning skills, particular models around language, both in creating the positivity and allowing someone to dig a little deeper into their own experience.
We encourage you to practice.
Right. Yes.
Especially in the low stakes situations. Get your filters turned off way down and turn your curiosity way up on high and ask those curious questions. Keep your focus on the speaker. Keep the conversation rolling with some reflecting what they're saying and kind of guessing at their meaning, knowing that they're happy to correct it for you. And then when you get into the higher stakes conversations, if you're able to listen and reflect back what people are saying, even maybe if it's not what you want to hear, you'll have that skill, and it's very powerful in those moments.
I agree. Thank you, Curtis. And don't forget, if you'd like a breakthrough in any area of life, we do have another Breakthrough Leadership Weekend this spring, April 25th through 27th. And just hit our website, empoweredcatholics.com, to learn more.
Thank you for being here with us this week. Visit our website at empoweredcatholics.com to learn more about us. And remember, as Pope Francis says, God comes to break open everything that keeps you closed in.